We lived in Rialto, and our sons were all leaving home to go to school or get married or whatever. And we had a big front lawn, and we decided we needed to move someplace where there was not quite as much work. And my husband was at that point working at Cal State San Bernardino, and so we decided we would look in San Bernardino. And we were active in a lot of organizations already here. And so we bought a house on a hill that has a swimming pool and has an enormous hill to take care of. And it's more work than the house in Rialto.
It's a beautiful home.
But it is, yes it is. And basically it was because he was working at Cal State San Bernardino that we actually decided we should probably live in the city.
I like that. more folks who actually work here should live here.
Yeah,
Something that we need to make known, because it definitely plays a major role in folks who, and how people operate and how they work and how they vote and you know, how they support the city. If you don't have a vested interest, it's a little bit difficult for anyone to think that it's just a job for you, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was born here some 57 years ago in the old community hospital that used to be on the county hospital on Gilbert Street. And so was my father born here, and my grandmother came here as a very young girl. So I have some very deep-rooted, threads that keep me connected to San Bernardino. And I've moved away several times, and that's what I think is very unique about San Bernardino, is that people can move away, but they oftentimes come back. And that's in spite of what people say nationwide about San Bernardino. I think the folks who really love San Bernardino, they love San Bernardino. That's what makes it unique.
It's hard to stay away, right? Like, I call myself a boomerang. And what brought me here was the university. So my parents didn't want me to go away for college because, you know, like, first generation, first daughter, firstborn. So I had to set the example for my little sister. And so they told me I was going to go to Cal State San Bernardino. And I said, okay. And they dropped me off at orientation. And I had a really great experience as a student. And I joined the Greater San Bernardino Kiwanis Club, and it's where I met Dr. Garcia. And you know, the community, what is really unique is how much our community embraces people and students and how much they love on you. I mean, my parents didn't know how to like direct me or navigate me, right? I'm the first in my family to go to school. And I moved out here to try to get the college experience, even though they were in Fontana, and it was literally only like a 20-minute drive. But I lived out here, and I went on to do an internship because of the Reyes family. Like, both Frank and Eloise Gomez Reyes were really supportive of me, and I did an internship in DC because of them and their support. And I came back, and then I went to grad school in Florida, and then I came back. And my first job back was here in the city. I worked for the congressional office, and I haven't left yet. Like, we just bought a house about 1.5 years ago now with my husband, and my husband grew up here. But we love San Bernardino. This place has always been home for me, is where I feel like I've really, like, where I grounded my roots and where I grew up as a student, as a professional, as a mom. So that's what makes it unique for me. It's actually not where I was born, but it's hard to leave. It's hard to leave, yeah, because I think the community really provides such amazing support for, you know, individuals like myself. So, and one of the most important things they told me was not to forget. Right, not to forget. Important. Yeah.
And similar to Kim, I was born and raised here. I grew up here, went to school here, got my undergrad at Cal State San Bernardino as well. Connected to so many circles through organizing and community organizing. Met the Garcias. They've been great family friends and have taken care of us, and we helped establish the Garcia Center with them. It's just a beautiful place. Like, I want my daughter to grow up here, but with the way development's going right now, I've been very cynical about San Bernardino, even though, you know, I've done so much work for it throughout my years. But yeah, like I left San Bernardino for the first time for my master's program, and I was gone for about 2.5 years. COVID luckily brought me back, and the birth of my daughter, and I was able to finish school here, you know, and I'm back, ready to do work.
Boomerang.
Yeah, boomerang, right? And I think it's a unique place. There's a lot of culture here. We've really, you know, established a lot of things like the taco, right? The whole Meatla's story, the fast food of Taco Bell stealing the taco. There's a lot of things out there that San Bernardino should be known for, but we're not giving credit for as well, like the first McDonald's and things. So it's a unique place, and it's really close to the mountains, which I love, and it's really close to the beaches. So it's a good place to like start a family and have a home. But like you said, we just need more home ownership too. We need people to care about the place. So
I think that we all have probably been cynical at one time or another,
Yeah,
right?
it's
We
true.
wouldn't be honest people if we didn't tell the truth. You know, but for whatever reasons that we remain here, those of us who do, we just get up every day knowing that we got to make a difference, knowing that we have to make the change. Because for Maya, you're Maya, you know, who it's their future that we're talking about right now and that we're trying to make a difference with. And so that's why we're here.
amen to that. So my name is Michael Segura. I'm with Inland Congregations United for Change, ICUC. I've also organized with San Bernardino Generation Now, which was an offshoot of ICUC. And I am the communications director for ICUC, as well as an active artist in social practice artwork. I have a show right now at the Little Gallery, getting my MFA. It's my thesis show, so
Awesome.
hope y'all can come check it out.
Fantastic. I'm Dorothy Garcia, and most people call me Dottie. I am here not representing any particular organization, although I've done a lot with organizations in the city.
Yes.
I was on the Fine Arts Commission, the renaissance of the Fine Arts Commission. It had died during the bankruptcy, and so the city, we reinstated it. We did a renaissance, sort of, in 2014, and operated well for 4 years, trying to do a lot of really interesting things in the city and trying to move the arts in the city. That commission was abolished. And then another commission was formed, which is called the Arts and Historical Preservation Commission, putting the Historical Preservation Commission and the Arts Commission together. It worked. It was difficult, but it was working, and I was chair of that also for 2 years until February of 2020. And it is trying to resurface at this point. It has most of the council members have appointed a commissioner, and the mayor has appointed 2 commissioners. They are having difficulty getting a quorum to meet, as many commissions are at this point. I think many people are not comfortable with the virtual, and so we'll see what happens. I've also was for 17 years on the San Bernardino Symphony Board and in the Symphony Guild, and so I have an interest in that aspect of the arts in San Bernardino, as well as the visual arts. I have an interest in the performing arts. And I have continued to work at what we call the Guthrie Music Library. The Symphony owns 5,000 pieces of orchestral music that are at Feldheim Library. And many of us spend a few hours once a week mending that music that goes out and is rented to orchestras all over the nation. What else have I done?
We're like, you're a leader in the
I should mention that at one point, way back when, I taught evening classes at Valley College. I taught at Valley College both evening and daytime for a while. And I taught a class called Creative Development for Young Children. And so that's been dear to my heart for a long, long time. That was before we moved to San Bernardino, before I became involved with things in San Bernardino. That is something that I feel very strongly about, is the creative arts for not only young children, the creative arts for everyone.
Absolutely.
But starting when they're little.
That's beautiful.
Okay, well, I'll go. My name is Kimberly Calvin, and I'm the Executive Director of a Community Center and after-school program here in San Bernardino on the west side, which is typically the 6th Ward. And we service scholars predominantly that are Latino and African American, and most of them live below the poverty line, and that's quite unfortunate. And so, with that being said, they don't always in line to receive resources that are full of opportunities in theater and art and production. And so we have been fortunate to be the benefactors and receive some funding through San Bernardino's Fine Arts Commission, and that has been a blessing to me, to the entire community, because these children have gone to the symphony several times. They have gone to see Alvin Ailey dancers in West Covina at the Segura Theater. They've participated in the Downtown San Bernardino Arts Fest, and it has just allowed us to make sure that they are able to broaden their horizons in the world of arts through the wonderful work of folks like Ms. Dottie here. And so then I had picked up this part-time job that really is a full-time job in March of 2020. So I'm also the councilwoman for Ward 6 as well for the city of San Bernardino.
Well, I'm Karen Suarez, and I'm the new director and the first director of Uplift San Bernardino through the Making Hope Happen Foundation. And our mission is to build a generation of successful adults who are committed to growing roots here in our great city. And so we're focused on neighborhood development and economic opportunities and human capital, which is the most important asset that we have in our city is our people. And what I love is being able to weave in and integrate the arts into all of the different work that we do, because arts is a very powerful thing. It's a universal language. It's what brings people together. I mean, art festivals and festivities and the celebration of culture really is something that, you know, we're seeing pop up in different parts of our neighborhood, right? And it's what's bringing community together. And so we want to be supportive of more of that. And personally, I've been involved with RAFMA over at Cal State San Bernardino and have been partaking in some of the celebrations there. My favorite was the Dia de los Muertos celebrations that we would do, and we would do activities with the kids. And I also played the flute for 10 years, so I was part of the I was part of the university band when I first started at the university. So performing arts is something that is wonderfully important to integrate into our daily lives. So that's kind of, well, and then of course, through all the community development work that we've done, we've just found that arts has been such a great way to start a dialogue and to also get input from our community. I've done it through the Heart Association. I used to do, I was the director of the Dominguez Dream, and we funded STEM and arts programs in underserved elementary schools. And that art piece, you know, woven into science and technology and engineering and math was really powerful to get the kids to engage with us. And it was exciting. It was fun. Mostly it was fun.
What is the current state of our city's planning and development? I watch most of the city council meetings, and so I try to keep abreast of what's going on. And to my knowledge, and Kim can answer on this, but to my knowledge, those who've been appointed so far by the mayor and council members to the city's to the general plan, there are no arts people. And that is really important to say and to know, that there is not any evidence that that is a high priority for our city council members who who have appointed people to those committees,
Mm-hmm.
both to the General Plan Committee and to the Downtown Development Committee. I want to quote something from something that came out of St. Paul, Minnesota. And I laughed at this when I read it because, you know, we talk about St. Paul, Minnesota, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. As what comes into our mind right now, of course, is what's happened in the last year in those cities. However, they had done so much in terms of art, and that's
Yes, they
totally
have.
separate than
Yes, they have.
what happened with
We
in the
understand.
past year.
Mhm.
And they had done so much with art in those cities. And one of the things that they said that the mayor of St. Paul said at that point in 2014 was this: creative people can drive economic development and community engagement rather than simply augmenting it, which is sometimes an after the fact kind of thing, instead of putting them in at the beginning.
Yeah, I think there's some data out there saying like when you pay creative people, they spend, I think, 80% of those funds within the city, like within the community they're from. So if we're paying our creatives here what they deserve, like we're just going to see that come back into local business, especially if we're promoting that culture. But for sure, development of the city right now, I'm very cynical again. Like what just happened recently, like we need to, as people, we need to hold our elected officials accountable. We need to hold Kim accountable and all those on the dais. Kim, you did an amazing job this last vote, right? We had a warehouse moratorium proposed. It didn't pass because of one vote, and the people who voted against it was Juan Figueroa and Fred Charette. So this moratorium would have put a pause for, I believe, 45 days on warehouses to reconsider what the effects are on the community, the air pollution, the truck routes, and really like come up with the plan, right? Like actually do city planning, like what the city should be doing. And as somebody who has a family here now, I really felt like that needed to pass. So I'm really disappointed in those two city council members, and I'm praising those who did vote. But like we need to do that. Like we need to have public comment. We need to be there at public comment. And your public comment can be anything you want. Like you can get on social media and do posts and do your comments that way. You can engage people to also make public comment, right? You can make artwork about it. You can do political cartooning. You could make video artwork, whatever you really want, dance. Like be creative about how you get the word out there, but we have to push. We have to push the city and those leaders that we have elected, right? And I'll get more into it as the conversation goes on, but go ahead, Kim. I know you have something to say.
Well, I just really want to say that how proud I am of the community. The community has really been making me proud the past 6 months. I mean, when we ask the city clerk how many minutes of public comments do we have, and they continue to grow, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'm like, hey, I get happy. I smile and sit back, you know, because that means that what I was elected to do, one of the things is to engage community. And if that is growing, then I'm happy, because that means then that the community is awakening, and the community is finding that the things that we are placing on the agenda worthy of conversation, and that they want to be heard is the most important thing. And it says in that community members are finding their worth and that they are valuable, because you are. Without you, we don't need us, right? And so I'm excited about that current state of our community, of our planning, because community members are weighing in. And that says it's a new day in San Bernardino, right? That community members are weighing in, and it's making it more difficult for council members to ignore the voice of the people. We're being reminded, why have you been elected? What is your purpose? And if it does not align, it will show in the vote.
They need to vote people out who don't
It needs
do
to.
what the community needs.
It will.
That's
Democracy
really
is at hand. It's being played out in a way that, and really and truly, those are the things that keep me excited and keep coming to the dais, because it's not easy, right? When you know that there are being good things placed on the agenda that can really push us as a community forward to the place that we really want to go. But it's not going to happen overnight. And so what we are faced with is then that November 22 is going to be a new election. And then we have another opportunity to put people on the dais that align with what the city wants, what the community values, what direction that we're going in order so that San Bernardino can become a thriving monopolist, right?
Well, and that's what's exciting about the fact that there's like the general plan update coming up, because it really is an opportunity for residents to participate and engage in a process. I mean, this is literally like the blueprint of what's going to be developed, right? I feel you on the, feeling cynical about those things, but this is the chance. Like, this is the moment where we can provide some input to let them know how the housing element, how are we going to plan all the housing that's needed in this city? What type of housing is going to come here? Like, we need to be informed and understand all of that planning, all of that development process that's to come. But I really do see it as an opportunity for us to be able to, provide input.
The opportunity is there, or could be there. But do you think that based on how either of those committees, the makeup of those committees, that's going to be available?
Yes, because they all haven't been filled yet.
Yeah, I think
right? They all haven't been filled yet. So there's an opportunity to inspire someone or to nominate someone.
I'm gonna get a little cynical again.
Well, let me just say something before you go there, Michael. And so I want to just make a comment about the charter being changed 2 years ago and affording each council member to choose somebody out of their ward, right? Which I did that, and I was crucified on the dais for that.
Thank you for that.
But it's there, and so I didn't create the charter, and nor was I part of developing the charter. But it's there, and it's there because, and it's not to say that in each of our wards we don't have everybody that's there, right? But there are some people that are more active in the community and already wanting to play a role in those capacities. And so I just feel that as a city, when we're talking about thriving or growing up at one time, it's not my ward, your ward, their ward, her ward. That's not it. It is us as a city. So us as a city, we need to take a look at that then, see who's doing what and where. That way, then I know for sure that somebody that I place in that position is where they want to be. It's where they're passionate about. It's the knowledge that they have. And they're wanting to come to the community and say, here's what I already do. Here's what I'm passionate about. And this is the part that I can play a major role for. So I just wanted to, just give everybody an understanding of why I did what I did.
That is really important, because having been on both the Arts Commission originally and the Arts and Historical Preservation Commission more recently, I think what came across not so much with the Arts Commission, although, because I think everybody was committed, but not everybody had a background or was really an advocate. In the second commission, when I was on it, I think council members had no idea of who might be a good commission member in terms of the objectives of that commission, which was those were difficult objectives to combine the arts and historical preservation. Certainly all kinds of possibilities there. But I don't think council members understood what skills, what background was needed. And they just appointed someone who...
Yeah, I think a lot of council members are disconnected. I think Kim isn't, because she works at the park, at the Kuma Unity Center. Ben's out there in the community organizing. There's some people who are highly involved. There's also council members who work outside of the city, so they're not here full time. They're doing this part-time job as a council member. Honestly, we need to pay our council members. I strongly believe that, so that they can work full time.
And commissioners should also receive a stipend. Yes, most definitely.
But for sure, going back to Dottie's point, I honestly think a lot of the commission, I served with Dottie on the commission. I was the youngest commissioner there. There weren't that many young people being taught how to do this leadership as well within the commissions. Dottie taught me a lot. Like me and her worked so hard. We pushed a mural policy that never got passed because that's our city government. It's just so slow, even though we're doing all the work for them, the groundwork. And so going back, it's just like people aren't qualified at times for the commissions. So that's something I think council members really need to look at is like who's qualified, their backgrounds, like Dottie was saying. And I see this with the planning commission, going back to city planning. A good friend of mine, Jesus Flores, just got appointed by Ben, I believe, for the planning commission. And when I watched that actual meeting, like he's the only one asking questions. Like he's the one, like he has a background and you know he does because of the questions he's asking. And the rest of them are just quiet. They just vote yes on it.
My commissioner does too. She works for planning.
Well, you need to tell her to start.
Like making sure, okay, I'm gonna tell her Michael Segura was talking.
Hey, tell her to get on those questions and start thinking the future game. Because that's the thing with the warehouses that I see. Like, we're not thinking about the next generation. When automation comes, a lot of these jobs are going to leave us. People can't see that because they're not thinking of the future. They might not be here for the future, right? They don't really care. Fred Charette might be one of those, right? That he's just like, whatever, like I'm checking out and I'm on my own island now. And yeah, like we have to push. We need to make sure we have qualified people and we need to bring back the leadership, right? Like training that next generation, giving them the skills and whatever they need, the resources to be able to lead on those commissions when it's their time, right. Or else we're going to continue to have unorganized commissions.
Well, that's also due to the fact that the city and the school district and Cal State, there's a big disconnect. Yeah. So we don't have this connection to where we're actually grooming throughout high school and then on to college and allowing them to be part of city council, city life, government, right? Governing, learning to govern while you're in high school is being able to see so that we give them some options the same way that we do when we're introducing them to the world of art, right? Just so they can explore and see what part of that world do they want to play a part in. Same thing has to happen in our city government.
Am I hearing bringing back a youth commission?
The Bridge program, yes. So Ben and I, Councilman Reynoso and I have already spoke to an assistant superintendent, Dr. Funches at San Bernardino. Okay. Yeah, we're working on it because we love the youth. And I'm only going to be getting older, right? Not younger. So you have to prepare the city to do that, right? We have to prepare, put them in place so that they know exactly all the intricate details of what we need to govern our city. Then we don't have to go out and hire someone who doesn't live in the city.
Well, I think that's part of why I'm so excited about what Uplift is doing is because it is and actually there's a public service academy that the school district has. So there are students that are already learning about what it means to be a public servant. And so those are the things that are this is the long game, right? Like, I mean, looking at all that has been done. So San Bernardino City Unified has 54 pathway programs that are going to go into like the next generation jobs. Yeah, some of them are great. Some of them, there are opportunities, right, to make sure that they are going to have relevance in, when we talk about automations. Because I totally hear you on that. And luckily is also a regional conversation. So it's not just stuff that's happening here in San Bernardino. It's something that's going to impact us regionally. And we have to stay on top of that. Yes. But I am excited for the youth. Well, I am excited for the red.
It's red.
We got a red. We got a red.
I'll comment later.
How can arts and multicultural activity best be incorporated into city general plan update? I think first, like what we need to do is separate the Fine Arts Commission from the Historical Preservation Commission, make them separate again, and then reestablish or make sure that the funds that are coming from the development impact fee are actually being restricted for arts and culture. That's a big
one.
A big problem happening, right, Dottie?
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's being used to pay for lighting, for parks, air systems, all this other stuff.
Infrastructure. This cultural development fund is one that developers pay into. 0.5% of their development fee goes to the Cultural Development Fund. And it's been in existence for 20 years, maybe. And 2 years ago, there was a decision by the council at that time to make that, instead of a separate discrete fund, which would happen to be in the mayor's budget, but a discrete fund, to make that a part of the general fund. And they voted. They had legal advice that it was possible. I'm not sure I never understood that. And they then voted to make it part of the general fund. So in the most recent budget discussion, the last year's budget discussion, there were all. I looked at the study at the percentages. I looked at the tables. I looked at the graphs. And a great deal of that money was being siphoned off for streets, for street lights, for all kinds of
infrastructure
necessary
fixes, right?
kinds of things, but they're not cultural development.
Right.
And and that's what we're talking about, is that fund, or at least part of that fund, needs to be set aside.
And I think one thing is sustainability, right, Dottie? Like, us being able to have those funds to always give out those grants, like micro grants, or to always have certain festivals. And that would also lead to possibly establishing a department for arts and culture, where we could eventually have a public art department sprout out of that, and other departments, right? Maybe even the History and Preservation Commission would be underneath that department. But that would allow us, if we had those restricted funds for sustainability. I think that's the biggest thing, is we were able to give out those grants, right? And then they take them away, the grants don't happen.
That's right.
Then what do those art orgs do that need it, especially here in San Bernardino, serving underprivileged, kids?
The last time we gave the grants 2 years ago, we had $300,000 from that fund. And we were able to give grants to many of the organizations in the city.
I think it was about 15, wasn't it? About
yeah,
15?
I think we had 15.
We each got 15,000, something like that. Yeah.
And during the past year, the last year I was on the commission, we were allocated $60,000, which meant, of course, that we were going to be much more limited to maybe 6 organizations at $10,000 each.
That's what it was.
And that didn't happen. I resigned, and the grants were never given out. And this, to my knowledge, then in this current year's budget, there is nothing there.
And, it's false promises. Like, I grew up here. I've seen it so many times from different council members and from orgs. There's always going to be these false promises of like, yeah, let's put in this general plan because it's going to happen. It never happens because they don't have the actual budget to do it. So you have to create those restricted funds, which I learned sitting on the commission with Dottie in 2014, how that works. And it's going to be up to you guys to champion that, Kim. Y'all on the dais, but also us community orgs coming together and advocating for policy and for the arts. Like, we need it for our community.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with you all. And I think that, as I mentioned before, that so we know we're under crunch time right now, right? And soon we're going to be back at the dais and discussing the budget and the general plan. And I think that it's just critical time right now that, like, as I just asked you, give us the blueprint, give me some other information. Your ideas are vital. And when we're talking to folks who know exactly what they're speaking about and are passionate and want to see this future of this art development in our entire city, particularly when we're talking about the downtown. And then the work is just already being done, right? There are folks that are out there already doing this work, but need the assistance. It's already been known. It's not a secret to what murals and what art culture bring to communities, and primarily downtowns, that people travel to go to specific downtowns just so that they can walk, in art districts and things of that nature. And so it's going to happen, Michael. I just need all of you to just give me the information so I can put it forth on the dais and make sure. And what I do know is that I know I have at least three
Well,
other council members who are wanting to see this as well and believe in it. So we're here.
one of the things that we wanted to have happen when we still had, when it was called the Fine Arts Commission, one of the things that we talked about, and we knew that there would be some changes made, was that we thought we should be, we were in the city clerk's office. The city clerk had taken the initiative after the bankruptcy to say, nobody else will do this. I will put you in my office. And so she was our liaison at that point. And that's why why we did so well. But one of the things that we wanted then, when we knew that we were being taken out of the city clerk's office, because that was a little strange place for us. But anyway, we knew we were taken out of that. And one of the things that we requested was that we be in community development, because we saw the arts as being part of community development. Well, that didn't happen. They took a commission that was part of community development, historical preservation, and put it in Parks and Recreation. And our point was not that we had anything against Parks and Recreation, but they've got a lot on their plate. And we don't see the arts as being purely recreation.
Yes,
that was
I got it.
the point.
I got it.
No, and I think that's a great suggestion. I mean, you see it across the country how arts revitalizes communities. I mean, I know that we had an effort, right, when the SBX came through and trying to get artists to help make, beautify the bus shelters, for example. So what I wish would have happened, now that you mentioned that it was monies were being used for infrastructure, is that there are ways to integrate the arts into infrastructure investments. And you do see that happening in other you see it in Los Angeles. Yeah. You know, the Metrolink, I don't know if you ever went downtown, but like, when you got out, there was all these artists being featured. They too did this great beautifying of the bus shelters, which I thought was awesome, and the Metrolink stations. And there are ways to bring art investments to be part of the fabric of the infrastructure.
One of the things that happened when the SBX shelters were built, and if you look at them, I mean, they all have some art in their little plastic enclosures. And if you look at the one downtown, it is beautiful. I was telling Michael a while ago that for some reason, I didn't know, and I was on the Arts Commission. I didn't know until I crossed the street one time from the City Hall to the Enterprise Building and saw that beautiful mosaic platform. I didn't know that. And so I asked the person who had been the consultant, who had been from the outside, who had been responsible for the art in those shelters. And I said, was there ever any call put out to artists in the community, in this community, to put in their ideas and to be chosen as some of the artists? No, I don't think so, she said.
Yeah.
And I think they only came and gave us a presentation, but we didn't really have any say on any of the issues. Being an art commission, that should be, made up, like Dottie was saying, people with backgrounds in the arts who could at least talk a little bit on
local artists.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that we have the steam behind us now, because it's quite inspiring to me to see that, if not every weekend, every other weekend, that there's some type of artistic event going on downtown and throughout the city. So again,
I mean, with the East Street unveiling, what was it, yesterday, right? The murals that are along the Enterprise Building. It's just beautiful. I mean, I think there are some ways.
Shout out to Freddie, West Side Story, putting that together.
I think that, what the general plan helps, at least the consultants do, is have an understanding of the vision that our residents have, right? So can we designate an arts district in the downtown, portion? Can you have arts districts in other parts of the city? I think those are certainly the types of things that we can ask.
And maybe not have consultants for everything. I think our city spends so much money on consultants when we have experts here. You can ask Dottie.
You're right about that, Michael.
Dottie can consult for free, right, Dottie? You're retired.
So what type of money would you be thinking that would be a good startup fund?
A startup fund to have a
allocation, a line item allocation.
For the allocation that the commission might be able to use.
Yes.
Well, the 200,000 was worked for a couple of years.
For micro grants,
and then
right?
we had the 300,000. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it
And that
depends
was
on.
fine.
So we
It
talking
depends on what
Now that
developments
doesn't
are.
pay that, I mean, that would only go for grants then. I mean, if
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about
Bigger
having a
projects.
staff person
Yeah.
who is
Okay.
specifically responsible for working with that commission, obviously
Okay.
then we're talking about a salary there.
Okay, a city staff person or a
city staff
community
person.
person?
I
City
think a city
staff.
staff person.
Okay.
But yeah,
Because
hire
you got
from
to
the
have that
community.
liaison there.
Hire from the
somebody
community,
somebody
but for
in
sure
one
city
of those
staff.
offices, whether it's the mayor's office or whether it's
But-
community development, somebody in one of those offices who has that specific responsibility.
And maybe there's another tax that maybe we can increase the tax, though, the development impact fee a little bit. It's not that much right now, and that might be able to pay for that staff in the
Michael,
actual
there was
department.
$4 million in that.
Yeah, and they spent it all.
At the no,
Not?
there was $4 million in that at the time that our commission was abolished.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, that money, much of that money has been spent now. I don't know how much.
I think too, it's important to let the residents know that if they push for, wanting the arts, right? I mean, our youth, encouraging them to talk about how much they desire to have more arts and more cultural events in the city by participating and also by stating it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll also be easier to realize that. I mean, I don't know that it's
we gotta
common
call in,
knowledge,
gotta
right?
call
I think the
in.
problem.
But I don't know if it's common knowledge
I
that
think
like
gotta
you
call
can
in.
plan those things.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
this could be woven into the general plan.
Gotta
How do you
call
know that you can weave arts and
think-
culture into
I
development?
was having this talk with Jenny Kane the other day from Arts Connection. She's the director. And I think it's similar to what you were saying about the communities you serve and give the art resources to, right? On the West Side, like most people are living in poverty here. Most people, their only chance at the arts is like at school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really expect people to just, like it's up to us advocates, right? To be out there talking to folks, to get them involved. Because most of them won't experience the arts if it's, like they're too busy trying to live. They're too busy trying to feed their families. They don't have time to take them out to a museum. I had a friend who never left San Bernardino and I took him to LA for his first time. So it's like,
Absolutely.
that's the communities we're serving right now.
Well, or when you said at school, or community centers.
Like the
and
Garcia
community
Center for
centers.
the Arts.
Community
there are all
center.
the city community centers.
Yeah,
and we did, when we were giving grants, we did a couple of years give grants to Parks and Recreation for arts activities at the community centers. How that went, part of our problem, I think, was accountability, but still.
Which would have happened if we had a
Right,
liaison,
that's right.
right? Like they could be that accountability piece, making sure the grants are spent right and whatnot. Like
Yeah,
checking
And
in.
I think it's just about support, about the city acknowledging arts, cultural development and its purpose and its place, significance in our city. Then that way, the commission is able to fundraise through the support, the same thing as the symphony, and then you automatically become a line item, right? If you give support to that organization, then you automatically get support. So,
And I
but we
think-
have to make that happen.
And with the arts, it becomes civic engagement too.
Yeah,
like
it
doing
does.
art projects, create civic engagement, opportunities for people to meet each other, create networks. So it's gonna be good for the overall city to get that going. So Kim, we're looking at you. We're looking at you for that.
I know.
Well, I think one thing that we need to look at, and if you look at the two parts of that question, in terms of gentrification, one of the things that has to happen is encouraging local artists in all parts of the community. And we know that we have arts. We know that we have artists in this entire community in all different parts. And so encouraging those young artists in the various aspects, the various areas of the community would be extremely important. So anything we can do that encourages that may, and then the other thing that seemed to me that could happen was we have galleries in the city. We have a gallery here. We have a gallery at the Orange Show. There's the little gallery downtown. There need to be small galleries in every ward of the city, and they're not. And so that would be another way, probably, to stay away from gentrification. Is that the local artists in that particular community contribute to that gallery, and so there isn't people coming in from the outside and doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's certainly, you know, to prevent gentrification, there's a lot of different strategies used in development. You know, there's community land trusts, right, to support and preserve, you know, affordability for housing. And, you know, I'm a big fan of these models that I've seen in other parts of the country where they're co-ops where residents own their apartment and it's converted into home ownership. And, you know, I've seen...
Live.
Yes, I've seen other where there's been acquisition of older housing stock, but it's really meant for the residents that are in the surrounding neighborhood. And there's some there's ways that they're preserving it through these. It's called like the mixed income neighborhood trusts. And so they have different income levels, and it could be a house, a single family home. It could be a 100-unit complex, like in the same neighborhood, and it's put within the trust, but the residents are the landlords, but they're also the tenants, and they have like a governing body where the residents get to have a say of the direction it goes in. And that's another way to preserve those neighborhoods and incorporate arts and culture into those housing districts and those housing communities without completely displacing the residents of those neighborhoods. So I think we have a lot of opportunities to learn and to see what models, you know, especially during the general planning conversations that we have. I think this is a really great time for us to do more research about what's feasible in the city.
I totally
agree. Because I would love to see more co-op and more increased ownership, right? Increased ownership, so that we can have, I think, more community-led art opportunities and cultural activities that won't displace our
pathways
existing
to ownership, right?
Those conversations, but I think we're starting it right here. You know, truthfully, is that the conversations just have to be had. And you mentioned something about working in silos, and I think the San Bernardino has done a very great job of that. When I go to other meetings, regional meetings, what have you, it appears that has been something that we just do. And when we are able to break out of that way of doing business, then and just focus in on the folks who live here and allowing us to bring forth the ideas and utilizing blueprints from other cities, because every day I get somebody emailing me something saying, Councilmember Calvin, here's your answer to homelessness. Councilmember Calvin, they did this in Omaha, they did this in LA, they did this in Pasadena. And the blueprints are there. We don't have to recreate the wheel.
Right.
What we have to do is just make sure that things that make San Bernardino unique, that we maintain those things, and then we also want to just tweak it so that it's good for us. But we don't have to recreate the wheels in order to make sure that sustainability and the growth that we need to expand, and so that both Mayas have what they need and are able to be brought up in a culturally enriched community.
Is it possible, and I'm not that involved with any of the the neighborhood councils. I know about them, and I know actually that the whole city, the council of all the neighborhood
associations
meets here. The council meets here once a month. The associations, of course, have their own meetings.
Okay.
And I have not. The one in my neighborhood has never been able to sustain itself, partly because of the hills and so on and so forth. I guess, I don't know. It's just never made it. But there are the associations in many of the neighborhoods, and I'm wondering if that is maybe one source or one area that we really haven't spent any time on in terms of the arts.
That's why on the dais last week, I gave the the neighborhood association councils, a shout out, because through their diligence and resilience, neighborhood association councils are popping up in other all of the little pockets of areas, right?
That have been dormant for a really long time.
Or never existed. Yep. Cimarron Ranch is a development in the 6th Ward that has been there since the early 90s, and they've never had one. And this group of folks, it was about 45 or 50 community members, came out to our very first one. And they have tons of ideas about what they would like to see, right? And so basically, they just have to say, like, they could say, let's do an arts festival right here in the community. And then that's how it takes place. And so like Dottie said, if every neighborhood association begins to think about and discuss the things that are important to them, and arts being one, then think about that. That would be a arts festival in every neighborhood association council meeting.
I think I'm gonna go back to Karen's point though. It's like it starts with housing. The arts creates gentrification. Like we know this from facts and from studies that like the stuff happening downtown's awesome, but that is like adding to gentrification. SPGN participated in that. I'm not ashamed to say that. We feel bad about it because in the end, like those developers can do whatever they want with their land. They can sell the little gallery if they wanted to. In the end, like places like the Garcia Center for the Arts, which is here for like another 95 years, a lease, right?
Yeah.
This is a place to invest in. But at the same time, the more we grow it, the more other developers are going to see the lots around here and be like, we want to buy this, we want to buy that. So unless we do the housing policy and we get more affordable housing, more of those options that you were talking about, like the arts is going to just gentrify our city, and us artists are going to participate in and eventually possibly be pushed out because, you know, most artists don't make a living wage. Most artists are like starving artists, right? That's the whole thing that they say. So I'm very cynical, and it's because, you know, we live in a capitalist society. Like, it's always going to be profit over people, and that's something we see in San Bernardino already happening widely. I just know, like, because of the downtown development, there's already, like, talks of prices being pushed up. The place where we're leasing for ICUC, we have this huge building that we're going to be opening soon when COVID, you know, laxes a little bit more. They were trying to like charge us $800,000, I believe, when originally it was like a $300,000 charge only. So it's like people just trying to boost things up just because they see other big development projects happening. And that's gentrification happening already. And it's a slow thing too. That's something to notice. Like gentrification is slow. We're not going to see it today, but maybe in 10 years, we're just going to see neighbors getting kicked out of their homes and things of that nature.
It's already here.
I think I'll tell you that.
It's already here. We are
just,
seeing
just
it.
an example, the houses across the street here on Acacia are all rentals. And the people move in and out and in and out. There's a lot of, it's really transient. And I remember when we first opened here, and I made a comment, and I was on the Fine Arts Commission then, and I made a comment to Gigi Hanna about, well, you know, those houses across the street, we need, I don't remember what I said, something about, we really need to make those look better. Those need to look better than they do and not be so transient. And she said, so you're for gentrification? I said, well, the interesting thing that had happened and that could move is that Habitat for Humanity built 2 or 3 houses just over on 9th Street, right?
They're building.
And so that's a possibility of, it's not exactly gentrification, you see. It's new houses and it's families that will support, that need those and will support those.
And be able to purchase
and they would love to continue to build. I sit on their board, and we've, you know, come across some issues when it comes to permitting and things of that nature, like a lot of other developers and stuff have in our city. But that is a very, very good idea. Yeah. And they would love to have that partnership with the city of San Bernardino, so that I believe that it hasn't been one in 6th Ward in about 25 years. So if we were able to say, for instance, that whole list of housing that Habitat for Humanity was able to buy buy 4 or 5 of those homes, right? And then turn those renters into homeowners is a way. Because I was thinking, like, so we're gonna have to, as a collective, to begin to buy property.
Yeah.
Well, the exciting thing that we're working on through Uplift is that we have this, we have a project that the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation funded, and it's focused on homeownership. So one of the things that our assumption is that a lot of people want to be homeowners, right? But they feel like it's out of reach for a number of reasons, right? Like income, or that it might, or that maybe they can't afford it because they make a certain level, right? So there is affordable single-family homeownership. So we have MPHS, for example, Habitat for Humanity, Mary Erickson Community Housing. There's infill lots that they own already that they are going to develop affordable homeownership. So we're talking about 80% of the area median income. And it's income qualified. You have to qualify in order to be able to get these homes. These lots have already been slated by the city to be affordable home ownership. And so really there's a huge opportunity to allow our residents to prepare themselves for these homes to come. So some of the things that we're doing is we're partnering up with the neighborhood associations. We've partnered up with the Arts Connection. We're working with our parent groups through the school district, and we're finding out, like, well, do you want to be a homeowner? And if so, like, how ready do you feel to become a homeowner?
And how can you get ready?
Exactly. And so as they tell us and give us that feedback, they're going to be pathwayed with a housing counseling agency that's HUD approved,
That's awesome.
that is there to walk them and navigate them through that home ownership process. And it helps us increase the number of San Bernardino residents that are already ready to buy. So when those houses come up for sale, unfortunately, we can't restrict for San Bernardino buyers to buy, right? So what we can do is just saturate the number of people that can qualify.
That are prepared.
Right? That are ready to buy those homes.
I guess my question would just be, like, what scale are we building the affordable housing compared to how much development's coming in? Because for sure, a lot of families are still gonna not qualify, like you were saying. So like the work you're doing is awesome. That's amazing that we're getting them ready for it though when they do present themselves.
But you're right. We need to increase the inventory, and like that's where there's already really awesome models in place, and it's just supporting the investment and to get more residents engaged in that process.
And I just stated, as a collective, it is what we need to be sitting down. We need to be sitting down doing these conversations and stuff, because if it takes 10 of us, it takes 10 of us, to build that, to take over the block.
I know I heard Cal State wants to create their grad program, their MFA program, like get some housing for their MFA students who come in so they can work within the communities. Hopefully not gentrify them, but like work with community to get them activated, so it's up to us, right? It's up to this collective to get the housing policy.
And ACOMA has been in conversations with the gentleman who built the Harlem Children's Zone in Harlem, right? Yeah, I'm so excited about that. Awesome. Like every time we're in a zone with them, I'm like, are we really here? What is going on right here? Because that is our mission, is to change the community one block at a time.
And I think,
and that's what they did, right? And so we know that that is the only way that we stop gentrification. We must take control of the community ourselves, and we must work together with other folks in the community, and we must then get out there and then say, we're buying this. Like just take it from this part of the conversation to sitting down and having someone who's already done this, right? To tell us, please map this out for us so that you can just, we know we want to do this. We know it can be done. You did it 20 years ago.
And I think talking
Tell us
about
how to do this.
New York, there's also the Chinatown Art Brigade, which was like pushing against using the arts, right? Like using a collective of the arts and people outside of the arts who just wanted to go against gentrification, like bringing artists in, looking at the blocks that were getting gentrified, creating messages through the arts, like really making it public what was happening so that other people can get involved and like things like Harlem can happen, right? Like where you get orgs to come in and funders to say, all right, we're gonna help you guys like save your homes or build more apartments, whatever it may be that people can actually own. So I think the arts can play a crucial role and not the role of as gentrifiers, right? We can actually fight against it instead. But it's up to us to also bring those people together and use a space like the Garcia Center as a hub, right? Like where they can meet and they can plan out whatever little art activities and interventions that they want to do.
Okay.
So.
So many good ones to even think about.
Some positive art contributions for me, as I stated, being the executive director of a community center. And I mentioned that the grants that we had received from the Arts Foundation, San Bernardino Arts Fest, and I believe it was 2018 was the last time we were there, maybe 2019. Nope, 2018. And at that time, we used our funding to do our African drum and dance, and we performed there. But the best thing was that there was a youth folklorica group as well who had been funded. And after each one of the organizations performed, there was this picture that was taken of both African drum and dancers and the youth folklorica group. And together they just hugged and took this picture, and everybody was just totally, totally moved.
I love it.
And they're all in their cultural garb, and then now learning about each other's culture and appreciating and respecting that. And I thought, where else would you be able to capture this moment? And it's still a picture that we have framed inside of a coma, and I think they used it as well in the film. So those are the examples that we not only just create, but they're imparted into the scholars who live in this city. They'll never forget that, and hopefully those kind of things is what we're all about.
And I was going to mention Art Fest as one of those examples of the contributions that we've done, that we've seen the entire city involved. The other one I was thinking about took place quite a long, about 6 years ago. It was called Mosaico, and it was put on by the San Bernardino Symphony, but it had more than just symphony. The symphony played the Mosaico piece that was composed specifically for San Bernardino, which had music from all the different areas of Mexico, so which is why it's called Mosaico. The symphony actually played that in the bowl, in the Roosevelt Bowl, which never gets used. And and there were art activities going on all over the park. We had tables with all kinds of things going on that people could participate in all over the park. And it was, I look back on that as just a really positive experience for people of this city. And I wish we could do more of those, because it wasn't just a performance by the symphony. It was arts.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. I do remember that. Well, I was reminiscing on, I mentioned earlier the congressional art show, but there's all these other art shows that the county level and the high schools have hosted, and I always really enjoy the opportunity to see our students shine in their art, and whatever art, with drawings and paintings and written poetry, tied back with their art piece. Like, I think just seeing those pop up throughout the year is something that I really look forward to seeing, and I would love to see more of. And then more recently, I really love when they've had the pop-up events in the Breezeway in the downtown area. That has been so refreshing, because I've worked in downtown for the last several years, and to be able to just get out of the office and just walk on the downtown area. Even when I was a student here at Cal State, like I've never had a fear of walking downtown. It's so weird when people talk about
downtown's quiet.
It's super quiet. And so, I remember as a student spending time in the downtown area, so being able to do something during the day and in between meetings, it was really nice, and that was refreshing to have the Breezeway come and have a little gallery there in have something that is focused on the arts here in the area.
One of the positive things that's happened in the last few years is the fact that Arts Connection, the County Arts Council, has an office here, of course. And so a lot of the things that have happened by both of the executive directors, the first executive director, the second executive director, and then the current, Jenny. But the last two executive directors have been very focused on, really focused on San Bernardino and making things happen here, as well as obviously they have interests all over the county, but they've really worked here, and particularly in the whole Breezeway situation. Jenny Kane has done a lot of that.
Yeah, she's done great work.
A lot of that coordination.
Shout out to Jenny. Shout out to Jenny.
Yeah, I would have to say there's a lot happening in the now, right? Like you were just talking about the murals on East Street. So that project that was done there, there's the Breezeway Art Walks, right? That had happened, but the Breezeway is still going on. Like there's the little gallery. There's gonna be another gallery called like All Eyes on Me, which is also being
Awesome.
done by a professor at Cal State. He's opening that soon, I believe on the 19th of June. And then
In the same area?
yeah, it's like
Oh,
on the other
that's
side
awesome.
of Creative Grounds. And then
Okay.
there's Creative Grounds, which is ran by Dwan and Jay. Jay Creates. And so they've been having events like weekly almost. So there's a lot of activity happening downtown. And hopefully it doesn't create more gentrification like we talked about, right? Because the other place I would say is the Garcia Center, of course. Dottie already mentioned it. But like how much activity is happening here and how many arts groups are invested here in community orgs. So there's a lot happening in the now, I think, that to be hopeful for, right? That it could continue to grow and include more of our community in this, like, in the work.
I think the thing that has to happen, and we know these things are going on downtown and they need to continue. And so it's really important that as this downtown development takes place, as the committee is formed and as plans are beginning to be made about what happens to the mall, Carousel Mall and so forth, that's why it's so important that those people who are already down there working need to be
Yes.
involved in that. And I'm
Yes.
talking about the people at the Enterprise Building, the people in the Breezeway, that they really need to be involved in this discussion
Yeah.
of what goes on down there.
Yes, I agree as well.
Well, how are there plans for them to actually purchase their spaces too, so that it doesn't just belong to somebody who can kick them out, right?
That's
I
what
think
that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, and that's why I think if you're a resident of SB, donate to the Garcia Center for the Arts. Like, support them. Your money here is worth it. That's what I'd have to say is, like, if you invest here, it's going to be here for at least another 100 years about, right? And it's probably going to continue after that.
And then to support the folks who are already downtown and have businesses so that they don't have to be struggling or worried about, not being threatened
Right.
with having to move out, but also knowing that they have that kind of support, to be able to publicly state that I need some help or this owner is trying to do X, Y, and Z, because that's the only way that we're going to.
See, I think
we have to fight together.
the Breezeway, the little gallery, and if there's another gallery in there, that's great. Right now, they are so fortunate because of who the owner is. And as long as he remains interested in
he has half ownership.
Is it?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
so.
But I think that has been a big catalyst. David Friedman has been a big catalyst in making sure that some of those things could happen. I think we need to hope that continues.
They're not allowing them to purchase the space anymore.
Oh, really?
So for sure, I was telling them sustainability is the big talk. Like, even the people working on the E Street mural project, I was like, think about sustainability. Developers still hold us. Like, they're the ones who have, the lasso around our necks, really. Like, they're the ones who can cut things off if they wanted to. But obviously, they're trying to gentrify the area so it goes up in value. Business-minded, right? Thinking if you're a business person. But that's just being real and logical about it. And hopefully, like I said, maybe we can fight, like you were saying, right? Like, we could fight to advocate that we could buy these spaces, that these artists who are there, these businesses who are there, we want them to stay.
Well, we can, because one of the ways that could be done, I think, that block between Court and 4th and E and D is a historic block. And those buildings are still the historic buildings. They still have the tin ceilings, the tin imprinted ceilings and the molding and so forth. Some of them have been preserved better than others, but there are, if enough people really got into this, and if our committee that's working on downtown development really gets into it, and I did talk, I mentioned this to several people about, be careful. Do not immediately demolish any of those buildings. Those are historical buildings downtown, and they can be renovated and they can be used.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't begin to just
And
tear
that
up
would
stuff.
keep some of that from happening if they were designated. They're not designated at this point. We
Yeah.
just know that they're historical. They're
okay,
not designated.
But it's possible to designate.
Okay, that needs to happen.
And I think going back to your point, though, what the arts events do create, right? Like that unity, like Second Lake, we helped organize that as Generation Now. And
Yes.
the thing with that, there's no sustainability because of terrible city planning as well.
That's right.
They went and they put a homeless access center in this park. And then it created a huge like encampment that all our years of work of cleaning the park and whatnot just got reversed. So all our volunteers burnt out. But like that was such a beautiful project when it was in the works. Like we had people who were houseless painting with us. We had all these like youth painting, people from Cal State, people from Valley. A lot of people came into that production, right? And a lot of connections were made. A lot of artists worked together. I brought like 2 different graffiti crews together that were like at one point battling each other, right? To actually like make peace again and be hanging out. So that was really awesome to see. And that's why we need events like that. And I would say there are art groups here. I came from the graffiti world. So like, I know a lot of crews, and a lot of crews end up on gang paths, right? And that's something to stop that is by giving them opportunities to paint murals, to paint walls, to not restrict access, no matter what it is that they want to paint. Obviously, there has to be some guidelines in public space, right? But allowing them to be creative, like let them go wild, and you can always paint over it. That's the thing I say with murals is like, there's always a way, like in a few years, right? Make sure, I think that's one thing I've also been thinking about a lot, is some stuff cannot be preserved as well. Like it needs to change with the times. It needs to change with the generations. And we see that with the statues happening in the South, right?
Yes.
So that's something to think about as we plan for the future.
You know, another positive contribution has actually come from our small business community, right? Because like if you think about, there's murals on the west side. Is it Amapola that has it, right?
Oh,
And so I love that.
Paint and Stains is his
I love.
tag.
And then I know that I think it's so Operation New Hope. They've been partnering up with the church, and they've been painting one of their little brick walls right there in front of the church. And so there's a lot of opportunities for business owners, homeowners, you know, our places of worship. Like there is so much good that can happen in terms of bringing residents together to contribute art to those spaces.
Right? The artists who are not being organized, I guess, in a sense.
And then what that does to community pride is something that we cannot put a dollar sign on that. And so that's what we have to do, is continue to create community pride, because our city has suffered for so long from just the opposite due to the blight and what we see that begins to condition our thinking, and that we don't deserve anything better than this, or we're not going to ever have anything better than this. And so in order to remove that, you paint a mural. You paint a
and get them involved. You get that,
and you allow the children to paint them.
To get
yes,
involved.
Absolutely.
Well, I think Michael's right in terms of what happened with Second Park, because that was such an exciting project, and there were neighborhood people there painting, and so it was just.
And you saw traffic increase after.
Exactly. However,
Red,
and then
red.
of course that bad decision, the bad decision that was made.
Oh, red.
And it was a bad decision. Oh.
Oh, you could have kept finished your thought. Yeah. So you can find my personal social media account at Holy is the Cat. And ICUC is ICUC Pico. That's also our website, so www.icucpico.com. And for SBGN, it's at SBGen Now, and our website's SB Generation Now.
I don't have a website. I don't have a social media account, but certainly if you had something you wanted to talk to me about or ask me a question about, you could get in touch with me through the Garcia Center for the Arts here.
And they have a website,
And there's a
Garcia
website.
Center for the Arts, and I believe their social media tag is also Garcia Center for the Arts. So check them out.
I think so.
Awesome. So again, my name is Kimberly Calvin, Executive Director for Acoma Unity Center. To reach me there for after-school programming here in the city of San Bernardino, that is kimberly.c@acomaunitycenter.org. And then if you need to reach me as far to talk to me about the city of San Bernardino business, please reach me at Calvin_KI@sbcity.org.
And the Making Hope Happen Foundation can be reached at www.makinghope.org. And we also have an Uplift San Bernardino website, so www.upliftsanbernardino.org. And then we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, so just look for Uplift San Bernardino or the Making Hope Happen Foundation. We definitely love to hashtag Uplift SB, Uplift San Bernardino, and all of the different hashtags associated with just economic opportunities and housing and really the amazing people of the city of San Bernardino. Yeah. And then I can be reached at VK Love Story. Shout out to my husband, Victor Suarez. and I can also be reached at Karen.Suarez@makinghope.org.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. This is Just SB.